mode.
Hello everyone, welcome to today's webinar on information sharing, working with tribal, local, state, and federal partners to improve communication and data sharing. My name is Brandon Battle, Project Assistant with the IACP's Leading by Legacy and Tribal Community Policing programs. Today's webinar is provided by the IACP's Tribal Community Policing program and is made possible through the support of the COPS Community-Oriented Policing Services Office of the U.S. Department of Justice. Before we begin, there are a few key things about the GoToWebinar service. You have the option to log in and listen to the audio portion of the webinar through your speakers and microphone or via telephone. You will see these options on your control panel once you've logged in. If you are having any difficulty using GoToWebinar, you can contact IACP staff through the question box located in the bottom right or the number listed on the slide above. The control panel will automatically minimize itself. To enlarge it, just click on the side tab. At the end of the presentation, we will be taking live questions from the audience. You can ask a question by clicking on the hand icon in the control panel on the right. We will then call on you and unmute you so that you can directly ask the panelists a question. You may also submit a question by typing your question into the question box located at the bottom of the control panel. Once you have submitted your question, I will then read it to the panelists. Our presenters today are Bill Denke, Chief of Police with the Sayucon Tribal Police Department out of El Cajon, California, Chief Patrick Melvin of the Salt River Police Department from Arizona, and Christy Knight, CJIS Tribal Liaison with the FBI's CJIS Division. And we also have Kimberly Lowe with the FBI CJIS Tribal Liaison Division. And now I'll turn the presentation over to Chief Denke.
I do want to welcome you today to be a part of this, hopefully some dialogue at the end on what I think is probably one of the most critical topics, when we talk about being able to sustain an effective law enforcement program, specifically, protecting our officers, our communities, and also the ability to handle, effective investigations within our respective communities. Really, what I'm going to walk you through today is kind of a pathway leading from where we had really no access in California into local, state, and federal systems to where we are today, where we've actually, where we've created a path. And before I get going, it's really important to note, even though we've had problems in the state with such access, historically, the FBI has granted access to tribal law enforcement programs into NCIC and other FBI CJIS systems, and that was further codified in U.S. Code pursuant to the Tribal Law and Order Act in 2010. So the first thing I want to do is walk you through some of our roadblocks. If I can get my slides to move here. Here we go. All right, first thing I wanted to hit on was just kind of some of the historical roadblocks. Now, some of these may be subjective, but definitely some of them are real tangible, objective facts. So starting with California being a mandatory public law 280 state with approximately 110 tribes, and not only being a public law 280 state, but really historically, really until like the last 10 years of a real misunderstanding about public law 280, misinterpretation, misinformation, whatever you want to call it, throughout the state. Even as recent as about 7-8 years ago, I was participating with the California Peace Officer Standards and Training, a program for state peace officers policing tribal lands, and I couldn't believe at that time, just that recent, that this misinformation was still out there as far as tribes' ability to still enforce its own laws, have its own criminal courts. Absolutely amazing, but I think we've come a long ways in the last 7 or 8 years. Hand in hand with that, that being a roadblock is also just the lack of development of comprehensive tribal justice systems, something that's also really changed in a progressive way in the last decade. The lack of cooperative agreements with local law enforcement, not just speaking about written agreements or MOUs, but just, really a lack of any type of cooperative history with, outside county law enforcement working with tribes on mitigating, criminal impacts on reservations. And probably the most objective of them all in California was historically there's been really nowhere in state law has tribal justice entities really been recognized or mentioned in any type of government code or state code. So with that being said, throughout the country, to get access in the NCIC and other CJIS systems and also NLETS, so traditionally that's done through your respective state's switch or state system. And usually that's either state police or in California's case, it's the State Department of Justice or State Attorney General's office. In California, even though Sequan was a police agency with arrest authority, because it was not defined in California government code as a public agency, we couldn't get into the state system, therefore could not get out into NCIC or those federal systems that the FBI grants access to. Luckily in 2010, a pilot program right about the time of the Tribal Law and Order Act being passed went into effect. I believe upwards to close to 20 agencies throughout the country participated in that for direct access into NCIC, other CJIS systems, and NLETS. With that being said, not to look a gift horse in the mouth, it definitely took the blindfold off one eye for our officers out here, but we're still missing quite a bit of information. I mean, you're not getting any local warrants, you're not getting local officer notifications, and a lot of the state-controlled things like parole status, hot files, and other really important files just for protecting your officers and community. The first thing we really had to look at was, changing that how we're going to deal with the definition of public agency. And you looked at it a few different ways as far as legislation, asking for an attorney general opinion, but we chose to kind of work with it locally at the time. Actually, back in 2006, we signed a deputation agreement with the BIA and had some success right out of the gate in being able to enforce federal laws on behalf of BIA, a lot of it federal citations, and some other specific type of crimes, casino-related crimes against where the tribe was the victim. With that being said, it seemed to start to validate the police department and the rest of the the global law enforcement community in this county and throughout the state. And it's to a point where some of these roadblocks locally were getting in the way of being able to operate collaboratively. It was kind of knocking down the walls. And one of the first things we did was, just to go back a little bit, San Diego County has probably one of the most robust interoperable radio communication systems in the country that nearly every law enforcement agency in the region puts their operating channels on, and there's shared channels, there's mutual aid channels, where you're going from one jurisdiction to another. It's seamless communications. We're not allowed initially into that system. I've ended up involved in a pursuit off the reservation working with the U.S. Marshals, where the pursuit could have ended a lot sooner, to put it politely, and a lot neater if we were on that system within 30 days working with the sheriff and using the BIA status kind of as the qualifier. We were able to rework county policy, working with the county and other local chiefs to allow our officers that are commissioned access to that radio communication system. And about that same time, we were participating in the pilot project with DOJ for direct access to NCIC. We are running into problems also with NLETS access. And for those of you that are just not aware what NLETS is, it's the National Law Enforcement Telecommunication System. Basically, it's owned by the states, allows for the interstate exchange of data and critical information. Just to one example would be in Arizona, Highway Patrolman is patrolling in Arizona, goes to stop a vehicle, California plates. That officer would have access via NLETS into California's DMV files to find out the status of the license plate, the status of the driver's license. We originally were not allowed to access into that, other states, but not California, because once again, California not representing or recognizing the tribal entity as a tribal law enforcement program as a public agency. Went to work on that right away. Luckily, our partners with BIA came to the table, basically said that, hey, when these guys are working commissioned or deputized as BIA officers, they are acting as BIA officers. We were able to remove that little roadblock and at least allow our guys access into some California records. However, not all, just those limited to what's in NLETS. From that point, like I mentioned already, it was still limited access. We weren't getting everything, from the local side in our county. We were missing a lot of very important state information for anything from officer safety information to be able to conduct effective investigations. So we went to work with the state with support from our local partners and also the BIA trying to find a way to remedy this as far as access into our CLETS system, our CLETS switch, the California Law Enforcement Telecommunications System. And at the same time working with a regional system, which is known as ARGIS down here, the Automated Regional Justice Information System, which is governed by our local chiefs, trying to use that BIA qualifier as a way to gain full access. And after a few months of very good faith dialogue and collaboration, it was determined that the best way to go about it was for the Bureau of Indian Affairs Office of Justice Services to apply to the California Attorney General's Office for access for CLETS for Sequan's commissioned officers, and same thing going for ARGIS in our local or regional area here. So what came out of that was a lot of dialogue, with our California State Sheriff's Association, although we did have support, strong support from our local sheriff. There were still other counties, there were still other objectors in the state that didn't really feel that the officers qualified or the agency qualified. So what ended up coming out of all of that was we had to take a look at the CLETS policies, procedures, and sorry, there is a typo there. It should be policies, procedures, and practices, and basically address the fact that since they're tribal employees, not employees of the BIA, that we had to rework their own policy. And what you see on the screen right now, basically in a nutshell, says if you're not a federal, state, or local government employee, but exercising law enforcement as part of one of those types of agencies, and you meet the state's peace officer standards and training requirements to be a peace officer, you would be able to have such access. This went in front of the commission that handles this in California, was voted through unanimously a year ago, September passed, and then subsequently the same meeting, the application for full access into CLETS was also passed. In parallel, like I said, we are also working with our regional system of ARGIS in the county, and that also passed unanimously. So just to give you an idea of how effective this is, or just to kind of show you what our police officers are missing in the field, the last 90 days or the last quarter of 2015 was the first 90-day period, the first quarter where our officers had full access either in the station or via a mobile device in the field, and that includes facial recognition. I mean, you name it, they had their hands on it. Our arrests for warrants arrest warrants that were outside of the tribe, but people that were on the reservation, just on regular contacts by our police officers, went up 300% in that 90-day period. So we're looking at, I believe, about 15, 16 arrests. Most of those are warrant arrests. Most of those felonies, significant felony warrants, all the way up to 60 in a 90-day period when you compare it to the 2 years prior, 2014, 2013. And what I really want to end this on, get to that slide, excuse me, it's just really looking back, you know, that good faith for collaboration. And this can be applied not only for working on, you know, issues of access to databases, but anything when we're working with outside agencies. And the first thing I highlight is establishing identity based off departments' capabilities, especially for younger agencies in California or tribes that are just starting their programs, you know, not operating outside of what you're capable of doing. Very important, hold to strict hiring standards, training standards. I think that's one thing the BIA commission process has done. It's kind of validated that, because that's, you know, there's federal law, the county, the state can look up to see what those standards are to be issued a commission. And probably the most important, operational transparency. You know, we hear this a lot right now with a lot of the police shootings, but we're not talking so much with the community, but just importantly, working with our local, state, and federal partners, and, you know, showing our policy, being open, you know, just when you come to the table, you know, it's just everybody knows what the end game, what we're trying to achieve is there, and you know, I'm just trying to find the best way to go at it. So with that being said, that concludes my part of the presentation. I look forward to any questions at the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Denke. Now I'll turn it over to Chief Melvin.
Okay, very good. I'm trying to go to the next screen now. Okay, the Intertribal Council of Arizona. First of all, good afternoon, everyone. Glad you could make it, and Chief Denke, it's good to hear your voice, and glad to you were able to provide such an interesting presentation. I would start off by saying that I've been the Chief of Police here for, I'm in my 5th year, and although this started in 2013, we have some exceptional individuals that were spearheading this program. So although I'm giving a presentation, there are definitely others that are more qualified and capable to and deserving of much more attention than I am. So just want to put that out before I get started. I want to talk a little bit about the Intertribal Council of Arizona. It was established in 1975, and it provides a voice for the 21 tribes in Arizona. The ISIN, or the Indian Country Intelligence Network, actually my assistant chief, Carl Auerbach, was one of the founders of that over 20 years ago. And out of that, we have the ISIN representation for all of the tribes in Arizona. I'm having difficulty switching pages, so if you could please, while I'm trying to get that, if you could switch for me, I'd appreciate it. Thank you. In 1994, the study on gangs, we had a huge gang issue here, and the crimes were occurring, and as you all know, in Indian country sometimes, especially in our area, where we have tribes that are close to one another. We are right in the middle of some cities. We abut next to the city of Scottsdale, the city of Mesa, the city of Tempe, the Fort McDowell tribal community, and also Fountain Hills, which is another area. And what we were finding is that sometimes when crimes were being committed in our community, they would also leave and flee and go to other tribal communities. And that was when it was decided that it was very important that there needed to be additional communication between the different tribes. And that's how this organization got started in 2013, the Tribal Law Enforcement Consortium of Arizona, also known as TLECA. Membership of that is open to all the tribes, but specifically there were several tribes that came together to start that. Can you go to the next page, please? I apologize for continuing to ask for that. The Ak-Chin community is about 35 miles from the Salt River community. As I mentioned earlier, the Fort McDowell community, and I will tell you at the time, the chief of that agency, Chief Delmar, very instrumental in coordinating our efforts to get to where we are now. And that is right next to us. That's just east of our location. The Gila River community is somewhat very close to the Chin community, and that community in itself is extremely large, over 500 square miles of community, and that is approximately 15 to 20 miles, depending on which area of our community you go to away from us. And of course, that's the Salt River community, and the next community is actually down by Tucson, Arizona area, and they go all the way to the border. So it's very important for the tribes to come together in order to form this consortium to exchange information. The goal was to provide a legal framework for the tribal police departments to exchange information. I will tell you that I'm not an attorney and I don't play one, but it was very important for our attorneys from all the different agencies and also the coordinating attorney, a lady by the name of Ms. Montgomery, who came together to coordinate all the efforts, and that was extremely important for us and our respective agencies and communities to go back to our administrations and councils and our attorneys, and ours was a lady by the name of Marnie Hodaquin from our Office of General Counsel here at Salt River, who was very instrumental in being the go-between between our administration, council, and of course the consortium as it was being formed. The information is submitted through the FBI's National Data Exchange or Index, and information is sourced from the Tribal Law Enforcement Records Management System. There were, if you can go to the next page, there were 4 different types, there it is, 4 different types of vendors for the records management systems to use the Spillman project, and I was familiar with that different RMS. That would be the Chin community and the Tananatham Nation community. Fort McDowell used a program called the Sleuth program, and Gila River used the Visionaire. Our community uses the New World system, and it was very, I would have to give also Mr. Nathan Nixon props for assisting with the coordination, and he was working on the Indian Country ISIN and a network in Phoenix, Arizona, the Intertribal Council of Arizona. So with all of those, you had to coordinate all of those to work through Index with, as Chief Denke mentioned, the DPS, so that they could coordinate all of that for us. The resolutions, it took a while. Sometimes, as you know, it could take a while going through the different councils. Our different attorneys were working together, but different councils work at different paces, and depending on the different agendas, it was difficult sometimes to get on the agenda to push this forward. But I'm very proud to say that all of the agencies, I apologize for that, all of the other agencies were able to get their councils to be completed by about June of 2013, which was in the same year that we started. And then Salt River came as the caboose in August, a couple months later, and now all of those, all of the agencies are in that consortium exchanging of information. Next, please. Now, there's a way of restricting information for the different agencies. We use a green, yellow, and red program, and the reason for that is that some information for our respective agencies should not or cannot be shared with other entities. For the green information, type of information, that is for all users, and all users can view that kind of information, such as traffic citations, field interviews, etc. And then for the yellow information, and that information can be viewed by all users, such as ag assaults, weapons offenses, but the owning agency, the respective agency, is sent an email each time another agency within the consortium is viewing that information. And then finally, the red information, that information cannot be viewed by anyone except the owning agency. And that usually, as I'm sure is with your agencies also, is juvenile-related information or ongoing federal cases. And also when a search is conducted, information is available to the owning information. Then we also receive an email when someone else is trying to access information. And if there's something that's very necessary for an agency to know, and it's part of the red category, the police chief of the respective agency can call another agency and inquire and let them know what they're looking for, and then that information can be shared or not. But it's up to the agency in the red category. It's up to that chief to allow or to deny information going out. So that's an excellent part of the program of this information exchange. And that concludes my portion of the webinar so far, and I will be open to questions at the end. Also, I have some information that I can share or send to whomever that would like information if you're planning on starting a consortium or an information exchange program amongst the tribes. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Melvin. Now I'll turn it over to Kimberly.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Kimberly Lowe of the FBI CJIS Division. I am with the Tribal Liaison Team. If possible, I would take an extended amount of time today to let you know about the programs that we have at the CJIS Division. Everything from running subjects during traffic stops, checking on wanted persons, missing children, locating stolen property, running background checks for gun sales, processing fingerprints for teacher employment or the emergency placement of children, accessing systems that assist in the identifying crime trends and statistics, and having an avenue to share data on crimes, arrest, and investigative cases. But what I hope you take away today would be valuable contact information at the CJIS Division as well as our partners out in the community. You see on the division programs on the slide before you, the names that you have represent the tribal POCs for each of our programs. They specifically work on tribal issues relating to their own programs. They're there to assist you with any questions with our services. Also, I would like to give you a listing of our federal partners, local, state, and tribal representatives that we have out in the United States, what we do, all the information that's housed in our systems. It's not ours. It is owned by tribal agencies, local and state representatives like yourself. It is housed at the CJIS Division. Again, it's owned by the users but managed through a process what we call the advisory process. It is a shared management process between the FBI and our users. The names that you have before you, you'll see that Chief William Dinky is on the list. He is on our advisory policy board as a voting member. This group looks at all of our programs, looking at policy and technical issues that relate to using our systems, how it best benefits our users, and changes that we can make that would enhance that capability. You also have, for the regions that you would fall under, we have Robert Bryant, Jim, Scott, Gary. We also have a federal rep from BIA, Jason. They are out there again for your communication to FBI CJIS. There may be times that you don't know of one of our programs. You may not know who to contact, but you may be familiar with some of these tribal individuals. So please, they understand that they will have questions and comments. They may be the liaison to the CJIS Division. Please use them for contact information to CJIS about our programs and services. Also, in 2012, the CJIS Division created a tribal task force to enhance officer and public safety by improving federal, state, local, territorial, and tribal participation in CJIS systems. The task force will review all relevant issues that may prevent or discourage tribal law enforcement agencies from entering records or data into CJIS systems. Again, you have a listing of our tribal task force members. The first set you see will be our tribal representatives and their contact information. The next 3 are our state and local reps, and the bottom 5 will be our federal partners from BIA, DOJ, and FBI. Again, please utilize them for any questions regarding our services, systems, and any problems that you may encounter with our systems. For the next slide, I'd like to give you 3 names. Might make it a little bit easier on someone to contact. We do have a federal or an executive level tribal liaison, John Durbus. And then again, myself and Christy Knight, we work in the CJIS Division Tribal Engagement Program. You can use us as one-stop shopping for the CJIS Division. Maybe you know you have questions about entering records into our NICS system, doing background checks into NICS. But if you call us, we can definitely get you in touch with the right POCs. But also we'd like to talk to you about our other programs. Explain what all services we have and the benefits they would be to your law enforcement, criminal justice, non-criminal justice, and Indian community. Again, we'd like to initiate that discussion with you and get you the benefit of all of our CJIS services. So please contact us with any questions that you may have, and we'll start the discussion. The last contact information that I'd like to give you would be regarding our Tribal Engagement Program Special Interest Group. For those of you who have access to LEAP, the Law Enforcement Enterprise Portal, this gets you a multitude of information on FBI services, programs, and information sharing opportunities. To get access, you'll see information on the right side of your screen to LEAP, and then also for membership into the Tribal Outreach Special Interest Group. Again, please use any of our contact information to reach CJIS, to talk about our services, to talk about any issues that you may have regarding access to the system, utilization of our systems, and records that you currently have within our systems itself. Again, thank you for the time. This concludes my presentation, and I will be available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Kimberly. Now we'll open the floor for questions.
Hi, and this is Jennifer Stiles. I'm the project manager of IACP's Tribal Community Policing Project and staff liaison to our Indian Country Law Enforcement section. So I also wanted to pass along my thank you to our presenters today for coming on and sharing your expertise. We did have one question come in from Chief Tom Kelly in Apache Junction. He was asking Chief Melvin to maybe give a brief overview of the VICAP program as another information sharing tool for serial offenses. Chief Melvin, I don't know if you want to have any comments on that.
This is, thanks, Tom, for the question. I'm actually not familiar with that, but I think some of my staff might be. Tom, I can get out offline if you would, please, and get that information to you. The VICAP information, is that correct?
Yeah, and Tom actually mentioned that he's going to be in the next Indian Country Section meeting and that he can share some information about it. He works with a few of the states. So actually, I don't know, can we open up Tom's line to see if we can? We'll see if we can get Tom's line opened up. Maybe he can share that with everyone.
And you're unmuted now, Tom?
All right. Sorry, it looks like we might be having an audio issue, but we will certainly get that information out to everyone. As Tom mentioned that he is willing to share some information at our next Indian Country meeting, and we could certainly get that out to everyone. So, and if anyone has other questions, you can certainly put those in. We'll keep an eye out for those. One question I had for our presenters, one of the challenges we hear frequently about is that it's difficult for tribal police to get their tribal councils to kind of understand their needs in terms of information sharing and the equipment that's required. I'm curious if any of you have any thoughts on, what's been a successful strategy for kind of helping your council understand what it is that you need in order to move forward with these projects.
For this building, just take a first stab or practical approach to that, and that is just bringing it down to its the most simple or practical scenario. I mean, for us, it was very obvious in California when you're working from no access. I mean, it's you know, officer stops a car and, I mean, they're blind. They have no idea. The next step from there, like I said in my presentation, although we had access to NCIC and NLETS, you know, there's still officer safety issues, and we had to build off that with our council when we needed more funding, is explaining what those gaps really are. And for instance, you know, something I always go to is, you know, just because there's not a warrant on a person or a want or hit on a vehicle, that vehicle or that person, the person might have just been involved in a robbery, and there's not a warrant in the system. But with our local, with our regional system, you know, an officer notification hit can be put in. So when that officer runs that person locally, you know, he's going to approach that individual a lot different if they're wanted for questioning in a homicide, versus them, the reason for the stop was to write a traffic citation for running a stop sign. So I think it's keeping it very very practical, you know, just real life scenarios, things that happen day in and day out, and how at risk their officers are when they do not have access or don't have the equipment to technology to access those vital records or information systems.
Thanks, Bill. If I may also, Jennifer, contribute a little bit to that. I think with my council, first of all, we had one of our council members as a board member of the Tribal Law Enforcement Consortium of Arizona, and that definitely helped out the situation because they were aware of the current needs and our current efforts. I would also say that every opportunity I can as the chief, every opportunity I can to educate and keep informed my council definitely helps when it's time to assist when we're doing some type of endeavor like this. Transparency is just of the utmost importance. And then, unfortunately for my agency, we had a very catastrophic incident occurred when we lost one of our officers in 2014, and that just let my council know, and for that matter, the entire River FEMA Maricopa Indian, our community, see the importance of information sharing. We've had several incidents since that time, but the ability to refer back to this agreement has definitely helped us and helped us when we're participating with different task forces amongst the different tribal communities, et cetera. So I think it's very important to, as the chief or the CEO, to be able to go to the council, and the council is quite open and responsive to our needs, and I think the transparency that we have in police departments is definitely necessary for successful law enforcement.
Hello, everyone. This is William C. with the Law Enforcement Enterprise Portal. I just wanted to let you all know that BICAP is available on LEAP as a service provider.
All right. Well, thank you for that. It looks like I haven't seen any other questions come in. So again, we do have a few more minutes if anyone else wants to jump in with those. In the meantime, I did want to share this webinar today as part of a series of webinars we've been doing through IACP's Community Policing Project, sponsored by the COPS office at DOJ. We do have one more webinar coming up next week, which is about strategies for improving cultural awareness. So we're looking at, training opportunities both for your officers internally and also for your external partners. So we have Chief Bob Bryant from the Penobscot Nation in Maine and Deborah G. from the Chickasaw Nation courts in Oklahoma will be on that webinar. So you can sign up for that at the link on the screen there. And we're going to be making recordings of all of these webinars available after the fact, so you'll be able to access those on that same website. So, and these are all part of a larger project we're doing. We'll be releasing a guidebook later this year, which talks, really from the chief executive level about different strategies that can be used to develop a community policing program in Indian country. So we'll definitely let everyone know when those resources are available.